7 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Toni Morrison,
Here.
Christopher Palmieri,
Here.
Jack Perry,
Here.
Jennifer Klock,
Here.
Michael Del Santo, Valerie DiPaolo,
Here.
William Dietzick,
Here.
James Morelli,
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here, I did hear from Councilman Del Santo. He's unfortunately able to attend tonight, so if we can please stand for the prayer and the flag salute.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you would keep your hand upon us as we commit ourselves to the citizens of Southington. We pray for wisdom and clarity in our decision-making, and we humbly ask for your continued blessings upon Southington. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting, Monday, November 25th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Jim, any discussion on the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I need correction. I was here on the dais and not remote last meeting.
Alex, if we can just make a note to correct the meeting minutes from the last meeting, that Jen Klock was present and not remote, I think that would be appreciated. So do we want to make a motion
Yeah,
to
I'll
approve with
modify
that
Yep.
modification?
With that
And
change.
Second.
amend the second? Okay, thank you, everybody. Any other discussion? Anybody need to recuse themselves or anything, or abstain?
I do.
You will?
Abstain.
Okay. I got to do the math in advance, Val.
Give you the heads up.
Where's Mike to make fun of me tonight? Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, so the motion passes 7-0-1. Did I get that right, you guys? All right. Okay, we're going to move on to our first agenda item, which is agenda number 3. It's Live Well Dementia Friendly Presentation. Here we have from Live Well. If you can, Heidi, introduce your name and if you have your colleague that you want to introduce, it's up to you. And
do.
we have
I do.
invited Live Well. I know we've spoken about Live Well and our dementia positive effort that's going on. There was a workshop in town. Heidi's kind enough to come out and talk a little bit about the initiative and a little bit about the workshop and maybe how we can help going forward as we engage each other, public and private sector, for this worthy cause. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Town Council and the residents of Southington. Happy holidays. We're so thrilled to be here. I'm Heidi Gill. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Live Well, and we're going to talk today about the opportunity for Live Well to be a beacon and the first in the nation to be a dementia-positive community. We'll explain a little bit about what that's about. I have Tanushka Tui here. She's a Yale School of Public Health student that has been instrumental, and we have some people that are amazing champions and heroes with lived experience here in Southington that will speak as well a little bit later. But for starters, I just want to, just as a background for Live Well, Live Well is a nonprofit organization. It's been in existence for about 33 years in Southington. Started it out as a residential campus as the Alzheimer's Resource Center, is now called Live Well because we believe you can live well with dementia and cognitive change. And we are exclusively supporting people impacted by dementia, and even more so, we're excited about really impacting people who care about their brain health that may not be diagnosed, but really want to minimize the risk of cognitive decline. So we serve people across the continuum in the community and on the residential campus. Now, when you come off 84 now or go down South Main Street, you see a different place. You see this building up here, which is our Resilient Living Center, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But I want to thank you, Town Council and the Town of Southington. Without you and your support for our campus renovations and expansion, we would not have been able to do the work without your support. So I want to begin with that huge sign of gratitude that you have created a center that truly will be the first of its kind in the country to do things differently. So I want to tell you about this a little bit more, but I am not here alone as LiveWell. We've had many representatives of stakeholders across Southington for years, for decades, doing work caring for people living with dementia. So I'm here representing actually an advisory team, and that advisory team is in this brochure that I've provided with you today that came together to plan for the events that you'll hear about this evening. A couple are here. Well, Val is here, and she's been on the committee for years. Bill Palmieri is here, and I don't think anyone else for now, but they are amazingly committed to this work, and so I'm here representing their voices as well. So it all started years ago, and with the terminology, actually dementia-friendly. And we had a lot of success. We did a lot of education with first responders, promoting awareness for what it means to live with dementia. And it was really exciting because it was an award-winning initiative in Southington that was brought to the Capitol and recognized for its effort as one of the premier dementia-friendly communities in the state. So then when we got through COVID, and we had a kind of a halt with COVID, and when we got through that, we said with the stakeholders, how do we reboot this effort? And what is the language that we need to use to really show people that we're committed, we want to take this all to a new level? And I tell you, what we found is that there's a new nomenclature that we wanted to adopt as we looked at the World Health Organization to see what was in their articles. And what we found is that what the talk was is that there was more about the dementia positive way in which we could act, think, and talk about dementia. Putting dementia and positive together doesn't seem like the two things that might come together, but that's exactly why we like it so much. So the article that I also provided you a copy of really speaks to how does dementia capable, dementia positive, and dementia friendly all inform policy, research, and practice. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about what that means. So dementia friendly is promoting the awareness of the needs of people living with dementia and gaining the support of the community. Dementia capable is about ensuring that the workforce is ready, that there's good, strong programs and services in community to build capacity to care for people living with dementia. But dementia positive was super cool because it meant the worth and contributions and strengths of people living with dementia count, that they need to be honored and they need to be brought to the center of community as voices to impact the change itself. So that's why we landed on dementia positive, and my friends that are here will come up and share later how they would describe dementia positive and why this matters to them. But ultimately, we have an empowering partnership network that is made up of people with a lived experience that do impact policy research and practice on an ongoing basis in partnership with us. And how they began to describe what dementia positive means was through these words like worth and contribution. I want people to see my strengths and the can do and what I can do. I want to change the narrative. I want to reduce stigma. I want to be included, and I want to live well with dementia. All things that really are possible in a dementia positive community. So we're excited to move with that nomenclature and move on to the next level in Southington to make Southington the best place to live if you're living with cognitive change. So the facts are compelling. I just want to say the why, of course, is it's worldwide, it's national, it's in Connecticut, and it's obviously here in Southington. In that worldwide, it's 50 million people that are impacted. Across the United States, it's 7 million, excuse me. Across our state, it's about 77,000 people that are impacted by dementia. And then here in Southington, this was built off of the Connecticut Healthy Aging Data Report by my friend Tanushka here, and we want to really work with these numbers because we really want to measure our success here. But it looks like the cases will be about 3,000 as we go into 2050. Why is it important to act now? So it's a great opportunity for Southington, as I mentioned, because there isn't other communities doing this work like you are. You already have paved the way. We need to leverage those strengths, and we can show that through our focus together, we can reduce and minimize and even prevent dementia from occurring in the first place. Impacts everyone. It's the opportunity to lead because you are such a collaborative organization. I love working in Southington. There's nothing like collaboration in its real form and its authentic form than what happens here in Southington, Connecticut. So you have a strong satisfaction, which makes you a model for other towns. We can save costs while we act. We can make certain people don't land on residential and institutional settings and actually live at home longer in the place they'd like to live. And ultimately, beyond being dementia positive, beyond really having that infrastructure to keep people where they want to live, I love the thought of having a healthy brain zone, a place where everyone is focused on their brain health like they are on their heart health, a place where we're really preventing dementia and minimizing risk. And I'll tell you why that's important. This Lancet report, if you haven't seen it, has 14 modifiable risk factors that are clearly showing that if you modify these 14 risk factors, you might prevent or delay nearly half of the dementia cases. So what would it be if it was a newsflash in Southington, instead of having 3,000 cases, you cut that in half to 1,500? Wow, what a story that we could share, and I do believe it's possible. If we put the numbers down, we begin to track and promote the importance of this modifiable risk factors, it can happen here in Southington. Hearing loss, right up top there, is something that we don't think about when we think about the risk for dementia. And I'll say, as you learn more about each one of these, and we're excited to promote and share what this is all about, you say, wow, there's a lot of lifestyle interventions and change that we can all make together in community to take care of our brains. So we're real excited about this time really moving towards not only educating about dementia, but promoting brain health along the way. So when we got back together all the stakeholders, the stars started to align, and we actually bumped into this film called Human Forever. It's an international award-winning documentary of a story of Tuan Toebs, who's a 28-year-old person at the time, young, actually living in a nursing home for several years. And he writes a book about housemates, about what that experience was about, and then he begins to travel the world with his friend Jonathan de Jong. And Jonathan helped him paint this story about a human story that is looking at how are people with dementia, those that are most vulnerable, being cared for throughout the world. And so this Human Forever movie is a true spark to getting outside of Southington, to get outside of ourselves in the world, to say, why is transformation needed? So it's a great movie that we were able to show as a spark, because what our advisory team said is we not only want to spark the whole community about why this is important, but we want to use a process to plan for action. So that's what we did. We planned for action through what's called appreciative inquiry. And you can't see those, I probably can't see the slides up there. I hope you're able to look at these another time later. But the process really worked, and we're so happy that Paul was there to join us and others in this room. And of course, Alex was there to welcome people to the occasion. But the process, again, supported by Main Street, yeah, that helps. Thank you so much. Supported by the Main Street Foundation, as they've supported a lot of this work. We worked to first find the strengths of Southington and how we build upon the strengths of Southington. We then moved to a dreaming phase with what was possible. We then moved into designing what could be, and then deploying is what must happen. So we had 60 people that joined together. We wanted a smaller venue because we wanted to have people with cognitive change front and center in the room. We had over 20 people living with cognitive change from Southington in the room, alongside of all of these different contributors at the table, so that those tables that you saw up there, anywhere from community residents to the police and fire department, again, so instrumental, cafes, the laundromat, like really the natural occurring places where people go to live their life was what we wanted to have in the room, as well as the national thought leaders and the universities and professionals and faith-based organizations. But it was really a whole system in the room ready to change what it looks like to live with dementia. It was super cool, and it was really an impactful way to see so many people that cares from so many different sectors coming together to create the next steps for Southington. So we started with strengths, as I mentioned, and some of the leaders that had been a part of Dementia Friendly Southington were able to share their experiences and share why this is so important and the impact that we can all have. And then we moved into the dream and design phase, and the 4 areas that we dreamed and designed into were defining and measuring what a dementia-positive community is, promoting brain health and minimizing risk, building that awareness and educating, and then addressing stigma and contribution. So literally, as we dreamt, we went into a dreaming mode and thought about what we might be hopeful for individually, and then people voted with their feet, got up and voted to the area that they wanted to work on. It was quite an amazing, moving moment where we found that many people are very interested in impacting education still, and as well as promoting brain health. So you can see people got into these small breakout areas, began to design the action that could come next, which was super cool. They also did some prototyping, so they actually created something that looked like the idea that they were trying to create. So it's really a lot of energy. And while that was all happening, the work of art was happening with Jenna Weiss here, who's part of Live Well. She was creating the work of art that describes exactly what co-creating a dementia-positive community looks like. So super impactful event in 3 hours. We had 60 people bring us 18 pages or more of wonderful ideas. And Bill Palmieri, he's my partner here. He took that information and condensed it. We continue to condense it. We do have for you in a 2-page front and back, Bill, I got it front and back page, overview for you to see the magnificent energy that is in this town. So I look forward to you seeing that. So how are we going to deploy all this? I'm going to go through this a bit, and then I want to really bring up our heroes to kind of speak to why this is important. But just to give you a sense that it isn't just about dreaming and getting everybody in the room, it's about the action. So we're establishing and working really hard with our advisory team to now move into a way in which we'll have a council of ambassadors that are living with dementia that are going to be front and center to making this all work, that those voices are going to drive this change, and we'll continue to make certain that the advisory council asks ourselves, are we really inquiring and are we really seeing contributions from the lived experience? And then there's action teams that will be deployed based on these categories here. One being promoting brain health. All of us in this room, we can all work together on our own brain health and our lifestyle interventions. And along with people said, we need to bring this to the schools. We need to bring this to even pre-K was sort of the thinking in terms of brain health, which was super exciting. We want to continue the dementia education and training. Very important that people are aware of the resources, they have knowledge, they're proactive so they can remain in their homes longer, get resources they need, and access them. Because there's a lot going on in Southington, but sometimes people just aren't aware of them soon enough. And then the community culture itself and design. We want a proactive community that will be inclusive, along with the emphasis of well-being for all. Thinking about the environmental design in the future as well for Southington. I just want to land in saying, before I bring up my friends here, that the Resilient Living Center, that you supported is a Southington asset, along with many assets throughout Southington. We do not stand alone as this asset. We hope to be a beacon with you as a place where people see they can come and have the resources they need, because it is a first of its kind of environment in the United States that really pulls together all this resource under one roof. So it underscores the role environment plays in having seamless access to all services. It really defines health and well-being for people living with cognitive change. It offers programs for cognitive health as well as for people living with dementia, and it provides curated spaces. If you haven't come yet, coming to the film, which I'll tell you about in a second, and coming for a tour, you'll see how unique the environment is. But it's our goal to make certain that all environments in Southington are utilized to create this conversation and to do the work. But just want to make certain you know that this is an asset that we really hope Southington enjoys. So before I go into that, I was hopeful that I could have Tony and Mary Ellen and Betsy come up, and I was hopeful that they could share with you, because we do have next a film trailer that will show you On Human Forever, because we're hopeful that you'll come and see the movie on December 17th, coming up here next Tuesday evening. But maybe if we could have you come up, would you mind coming up and...
You didn't tell me I was going to have to come up in front of a group like this.
I didn't know it either. Right here. So Mary Ellen Duraco.
Go sit down.
So Mary Ellen, you were so eloquent in how you spoke about why dementia positive matters to you, and why the summit, how can we impact change for you and others in Southington? Anything that comes to your heart and mind, please share with everybody.
I don't know what could come to my mind, I guess, is more signage, signs to say you're welcome here. If you need help with your order or whatever, we can do this for you, or one of our assistants will come along and work with you. That kind of help where you can have someone there. Otherwise, I think ask the question, what are you looking for that you don't see? What are you looking for that we need to supply for you, that we need to get for you? And just, I think it's a big thing just to know that you all are here. That's mighty big. 2 months ago, I would have thought that I was all alone walking this road. And now that I see that this is all here and that everyone's working on it, to me, it's a great, great step forward. And I think that with the number of people who are coming down in the same circumstances, they're going to feel very good about it once they understand that they will not be left alone to deal with this. They will always have a group behind them. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for,
Except for Tony.
Tony, would
you
you
can
like
have
to
him.
share? Yes.
Hard act to follow, but again, dementia positive means, to me, is that first of all, Southington is so fortunate to have a facility such as Live Well. They're an excellent resource, and dementia positive really is inclusive. They're not separating people, and it's an inclusive type of program, and it encourages inclusion with everyone. I've always taught my grandson, it takes a community to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to raise a person. And just to give you an example of that, my grandson is here tonight supporting his grandmother this evening when she did speak. So it does take that community, and Southington is fortunate. We have a lot of great programs here. And Live Well is one of those programs, and I like Live Well because they're constantly evolving, they're constantly looking at needs and making adjustments as needs do arise. So dementia positive community, Southington is, and we have to thank Live Well for that. Okay.
Tony,
Yes.
did you, is your wife's name Mary Ellen?
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen, thank you both for coming
My
down.
pleasure.
Mary Ellen, thank you so much for coming up and giving us your perspectives. We really appreciate that.
Of course,
Thank
I'm
you
in
also-
trouble now.
That's okay. It's par for the course for all of us, right?
Yeah.
But thank you for participating in the workshop, Tony, and thank you for your service to the community. And Mary Ellen, thank you for your service to the community through Tony as well. We appreciate that.
Paul, that means an awful lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Betsy.
Hi, Betsy. Good to see you
Hi,
again.
good to see you again.
Thank you.
It was nice to sit next to you at the summit.
Pleasure was mine.
I am here because I am not the typical face that you would see for a person living with cognitive change. I was diagnosed earlier this year, and much like Mary Ellen just said, I thought I was going to be alone, and I thought that I was going to be locked up in a dementia ward somewhere, and I'm 40. So that's a big deal because I have a long way to go. I have 2 small children who are here as my support system, but I want to be able to see them grow up, and I want to have all of the opportunities that someone without cognitive change would have. And thanks to Live Well, I do feel like I'm going to have that. And being a part of the dementia-friendly or dementia-positive Southington is huge for me. I'm a parent ambassador in town with the Early Childhood Collaborative. I work with Joanne Kelleher. I do a lot at the schools. I do a lot with the Office of Early Childhood. And so it was really kind of a blow to get this diagnosis. But I believe that we can create an environment in this town that will stretch far across the state and even the country, maybe the world, and make it so that we can stay at home, be with our families, live our lives, but not have to do that in fear. And so I thank you guys for hearing us and for all the support that you give to Live Well, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. And if I remember, Betsy, you also served our country too, right?
I did.
Please tell us.
I was in the United States Air Force as an aircraft maintenance mechanic on C-130s for 6 years.
Thank you for serving our
Thank you.
country. Thank you.
They're just amazing, more stories that we could share. I know we need to move on. I really just want to say that there's so many assets beyond Live Well. I love it when people know that are sharing that they're getting a lot from this one asset. But I just want you to know that there's so many stakeholders that are 150% behind this, and so your support to be behind it is just. Could make it completely groundbreaking to any municipality to follow in your footsteps. So I thank you for your time. I wanted to close, if we have time, Paul, with just showing the film.
Please.
And just a
The trailer.
trailer.
Yep.
Again, at our performance studios, a picture up there will welcome you to see Human Forever. And I'm going to let Tanushka help navigate to the video since we had to do something different here tonight. You gotta go out of there.
It might be an extended desktop that you have to drag into another frame.
Remember, she said you gotta go out of the presentation. Minimize the
There you go.
presentation. Minimize, yeah, there you go now. Our hero is coming to follow. Here we go. So this is a 2 minute, not even 2 minutes, yeah.
Mijn naam is Steun. Ik ben 24, kerngezond en woon op de gesloten afdeling van een verpleeghuis. Waarom? Ik ben 24, maar niet heel mijn leven. Daarom ga ik nu op zoek naar antwoorden voor later. In een reis van 3 jaar door 11 landen en 4 continenten kijk ik hoe wij in de wereld omgaan met dementie en de mensen die hiermee moeten leven. En hoe kunnen wij de samenleving in de toekomst inrichten voor de mensen die onze aandacht zo hard nodig hebben, maar die wij zo vaak vergeten? Iedereen, ondanks leeftijd of diagnose, heeft toch hetzelfde recht op een goed leven.
Ja, ben je toch helemaal niet meer van enig nut.
Heeft u dat gevoel?
Ja. En het is toch ook zo? Wat voor nut heeft het nou nog als ik leef?
So the movie is definitely as chilling as and inspiring as the author, actors, filmmakers, Tuan and Jonathan that joined us in Southington to launch this film for the first time in the United States. And I know they'd love to come back on the 17th to see you all there. They won't be able to. They're actually moving on to throughout the world. They're creating their second documentary, which we will all be a part of. The summit will be covered and sort of how this community has come together to build a dementia-positive future. So we're excited for all that to come and unfold as well. So thank you so much, and I look forward to any questions that you might have another time. Please contact me at Live Well, Heidi Gill, and I thank you very much for having us this evening.
And Heidi, I also wanted to mention to everybody, for those who haven't been to Live Well, there is a bistro there. And I think you've invited members of the public to go to the bistro Is that correct?
Paul, you're amazing to bring that up.
I wanted
Thank
you
you.
to- because, you know, some
I
people
can
might
just
wanna
hear Michael
stop in.
Smith telling me, did you mention the, yes, so, the goal is, it's called the Gathering Place, and it will eventually have, coming soon, a couple of weeks, a test kitchen and restaurant. But right now, it's a cafe, and it's meant to be just that, a gathering place of everyone, inclusive to the entire community. We're really hoping those that just want to enjoy the atmosphere and the environment to come. It is not about whether or not you have any diagnosis. It's about being human first. So please join us in the cafe.
If you're going to stop for coffee one morning on your way to work, leave 15 minutes early and stop there one time and say hi to the community. Engage and enjoy it for a few minutes before you go to work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Any
all.
other
Have
questions?
a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Tanishka.
I just want to say thank you so much, Betsy, and I really appreciate you being here and coming out. And Mary Ellen, you did wonderful, and don't be mad at Tony.
Thank you so much for coming out, everyone. Okay. Before we move on to our next agenda, Chris, do we want to add an agenda item?
Sure. I'll make a motion to add on the agenda executive session for personnel matters, and there will be no action outside of executive session tonight.
Right, so that'll come after new business. So it'll be the proposal will be a new 12, and we'll make 13 the adjournment. And that's going to be including the town manager and the town attorney, and it won't include the public or the press. Okay, we have a second? Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed to that? Motion passes 8-0 to add the executive session onto the agenda. Thanks, everybody. Okay, now we're going to move on to our item number 4, which is our EMS presentation from Mr. Bill Palmieri. This is a little bit of a follow-up to some of the previous work that this council did in putting an RFP out. We approved an RFP. If you remember a year or two ago, we also awarded a bid, which was then challenged, and now Mr. Palmieri is here to give us a little bit of the background, maybe some statistics as to what led to that, how we're looking today, and then I think, maybe some discussions for the future.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to give you kind of an overview of the EMS process and put some context into what ended up us going out to bid. So AMR has been our EMS provider for approximately the last 37 years. They're our primary service area provider, which is our PSAR. The Southington Police Department is supplementary first responders, so what they do is they respond to the majority of the priority 1 calls and most of the priority 2 calls as support to AMR, or also to get there and start medical assessment and intervention. In cases of overload, which you'll hear me discuss further tonight, if AMR is in overload, they'll notify our dispatch center, and then we'll also send Southington Fire as a backup because they're in overload. And overload is basically defined as there's too many EMS calls for the number of ambulances we have in our town. So if we had 2 assigned and we had 3, 4, or 5, that would put us in overload. Or if they're anticipating a delay, then they would advise us they were in overload and we would adjust. And once overload is over, we pivot back. So if we look at calls for service, from calendar year 2021, 2022, 2023, we've averaged over 6,000 ambulance calls in our community per year. We've increased slightly every single year. If we look at January 2024 through October of 2024, we're already at 6,040, which we're projected easily to do over 7,000 medical calls for calendar year 2024. I only have the numbers from January to October because AMR, when I review the monthly reports, the month prior is given to me on the 15th. So November's information would be given to me on December 15th. So contractually, we are currently without a contract. In June of 2023, our last contract, which started in 2018, had expired. It was a 3-year contract then. With year 4 and 5, we could extend. So what that contract calls for as base resources is 2 advanced life support ambulances, which we refer to as ALS 24/7, and then a 3rd ALS ambulance Monday through Friday from 12 noon to 8 p.m. So between those hours, Monday through Friday, noon to 8, we would have 3 ALS ambulances. They also have, AMR provides us with a fly car, okay? This was added in 2018. They have since put the fly car to be housed in Atwater Street. That has a medical supervisor, which can also go to the scene, but it's not a non-transport vehicle, but it is somebody that could start medical intervention once they arrive on scene. The calls are broken down into 2 types of priorities. Priority 1, which is considered life-threatening, like cardiac arrest, severe trauma, obstructed airway. And AMR has a contractual requirement to be on scene within 7 minutes and 59 seconds. Priority 2, which is urgent but not life-threatening, such as abdominal pain, moderate bleeding, it's 13:59. So they have to be on scene within 13 minutes, 59 seconds. Part of the contract is they have to meet those standards 90% of the time. Since becoming the EMS chair in January, I've been tracking their response times. They're currently the 10-month cycle. 5 of the 10 months, they've met the 90% or exceeded it. In 5 months, they haven't. Their current running average is 89.6%. So that's kind of give you the idea. We talk about that, and that's part of the committee's job, is we look at the calls and we talk about how we can improve. And there's some calls, and overload is not only to AMR. Any ambulance service could experience overload, just like the police department or the fire department could. So considerations when we decided to go out to RFP. I've been on the ambulance committee for many years, and we've always talked about how do we improve service to the community. You know, Southington, just like Connecticut, just like the United States, we're an aging population. We also looked at these overload situations, and we continually saw a theme, like when we hit overload at the 3rd call, if we only had a 3rd ambulance, that would prevent that overload. It's not gonna, we can't address a 5-call deep, a 6-call deep, or because you can never possibly staff for stuff like that. So if we look at January 2024 through October, we've had 156 calls that created an overload at the 3rd call. Adding that to all our other discussions there, so we would, that's 15, a little over 15 calls a month, where if we had that 3rd ambulance, we wouldn't have been an overload, that we could have increased service. We also want to provide really good service to our community, and again, so those were kind of the reasons. Finally, we said, let's talk about it. We talked with then town manager Mark Schoda, with a consultant. We decided to go out to bid. We went out to bid, and we had 2 companies bid. One was AMR, one was Hunters. AMR bid for the first 3 years was a little over $2.65 million, and Hunter's proposal was years 1 through 3 was at no subsidy. And to kind of backtrack, our initial contract, we pay no subsidy. So AMR provides the 2, I call it 2 1/4 ambulances at $0. So then in year 4 and 5, AMR was at a little over $900,000 plus on each of those years, and then Hunters had to be determined that they would negotiate a rate for year 4 and 5. March of 2022, the council voted to select Hunters as our emergency services in town. So part of the process, the Department of Public Health oversees the EMS services. They have a right to appeal. So they appealed. We were notified mid-July to August that the state denied our appeal. So they denied our petition to change vendors. And I just took like the 3 main areas. One of them was they felt that we didn't have enough activity to justify the 3 ambulances. One of the benchmarks things that they used, it's called unit hour standardization, and they basically is if you're above 0.5, we can talk about adding services. So we were sitting around 0.32. So that was one of the reasons. They cited another reason was sustainability. They said because HCC or Hunters did not put in year 4 or 5, we don't know. And again, our council that we hired didn't agree with it. I don't understand it's a 3-year contract. Year 4 and 5 are not given. And then the final one, they talked about regional statewide emergency impact, which it is considered, but they also brought in other communities that said, well, if AMR was to leave Southington, it would adversely impact our community because of mutual aid or them responding. But in essence, if whatever ambulance service was here, I'm sure a surrounding community could have struck up a mutual aid contract with that community. That's kind of it in a nutshell. There was no way that we could have discussed a third ambulance with AMR without going out to bid, because the informal discussions that we've had in years, you could go from 100,000 to 700,000, and that's going to require a bid basically for town. So it wasn't like we could sit with AMR and just say, what are we going to do? We knew it was going to cost us money, therefore it had to go out to bid. And I think us having a relationship with them for 37 years shows that we had a lot of skin in the game. We asked for additional hours. We're talking an additional 6,680 hours, and they roughly came back over 3 years for 2.6 million. So we went out there. The reason to go out to bid was to improve service to our community. I don't agree with the decision rendered by the state. I feel that a lot of things were not properly looked at and analyzed, but nonetheless, here we are. It did cost $290,000 for the process, so now we got to kind of sit back and figure out where do we go from here. So I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Bill? Tony?
So the problem we've got is that the state can override our negotiations whenever they want to on an ambulance contract.
Just speak into the microphone.
Sorry, so the question is that, the real issue is the state government can override our ambulance negotiations whenever they want to. And that's the case for all negotiations in this state?
Yes, when we wanted to change medical services, AMR holds the PSAR, so we have to go here. We had to go through a hearing. So the state would say that we failed to prove that there wouldn't be able to, there wouldn't be an impact on other communities. We failed to prove that we really needed the third ambulance. But even when my years in the police department, there's different, and I've come before most of you talking about staffing, there's different benchmarks we could use, and I'm not well-versed in this one I'm talking about tonight, but if you look at it just by hours and stuff, an ambulance call doesn't end with just like you go to the hospital and you drop off. We could lose an ambulance resource for 2 and 3 hours, and they talked about like backfilling. If you look at backfilling, they're backfilling from Waterbury or Plainville or Farmington, and then HCC could be backfilling from Meriden, so it's not an exact science. But it's not that they just overrode it. They felt they had their reasons. We don't agree with them. Personally, I don't agree with them. I believe but we also have to understand that ambulance registrations are at a premium. Like AMR or Hunters can't go to the state and say, I want 10 new ambulances. There has to be a hearing, and then there has to be a vote. So they could ask for 10 or 15 licenses and get one. So that's something that I learned being on the committee too. So it's not like a one-for-one, like we could say, we'll just hire more ambulances. But yeah, the state did make the decision. I'm a little disappointed when they talk about regional impact, because yes, we need to look at regionalization, but it's not at our cost. So now, does this mean if down the road AMR wanted to increase to 2.25 ambulances and we tried to go out to bid again and we had somebody that said they would continue to do it for zero subsidy, are they going to now say, well, you would impact another community? I just was very disappointed in the outcome.
So, and if I can summarize on that, I believe the state legislation with the PSARs, mandates that each PSAR is owned by an entity, right? And that process is determined some time ago. So there's like this ownership monopoly, if you will, if it's okay to use that term, for these areas that each owner owns within the state, and the Department of Public Health oversees the appeal process, yes, which is kind of what we went through. I know that our town manager has reached out to our entire delegation, and everybody is willing to look at the legislation in this upcoming session and make some proposals for how we can, and I know everybody has said that they're willing to step up and work on the legislation together. How can we change the legislation so that it's easier for municipalities to make their own decisions when it comes to the ambulance service that they feel is appropriate for the level of service that they need for their community? And so I think that's kind of one of the things that the committee is going to look at here in the months ahead. Val?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow, that's what I was going to mention, is that I know, Bill, the attorneys talked with us about that could be really the only recourse right now is to try to get our state delegation really kind of put on this full court press type campaign to look at this legislation and see what can be done. Because all of our options at this point just didn't.
No, and it didn't pan out. We have to shore up our service. And just so the townspeople and taxpayers realize, it's not that even though we don't have a contract right now, we're working off that 2018 contract. So AMR has been, providing the services that are covered under that contract. But we do have to, figure out what are our next steps.
So, Bill, will you be exploring some of these options within the subcommittee and coming back with some recommendations, or do you need some guidance from us?
Well, we can explore some of, I think we need the guidance. I think the legislative option is one thing. I think what we will have to work on from a committee is to how do we shore up the ambulance service. I'm not really comfortable working without a contract and just kind of extending it down the line, because there are some things within the contract that the committee has agreed with that we always had a difference of opinion. We thought it was this, and maybe somebody else thought it was that. So we were all saying, hey, regardless of vendor, when we get to the new contract, these are the areas that we want to be crystal clear, because there should be no discussion when it comes to ambulance service. So we're trying to work on that, but the legislative part, we're going to need some help, and if we could have a really good conversation with our legislators, because it's not a personal issue. I don't understand how you can deny something when you have a 3-year contract and you quote that because the first 3 years are zero subsidy, and 4 and 5 they didn't say, well, we don't have to have that contract for 4 and 5. And the town of Southington has not been willy-nilly with their EMS service. For 37 years, we had the same contractor. And in 37 years, we asked to extend another little less than 7,000 hours, if my math's correct, and that was to the tune of $2.6 million over 3 years.
And what we don't know is that even if we went out to bid again, say now, if we started another rebidding process, and everybody gave the same 3-year proposal, or gave a proposal for a 3-year window, or everybody gave a proposal for a 5-year window, for example, we don't know if that would still be sufficient with the Department of Public Health, or if some of the other things such as the unit standardization or the current rate of 0.32 where we're at, whether that now plays a more significant role in their decision-making process if it were to get appealed. So my recommendation is we have to pursue the legislation first, but certainly open to suggestions.
And just to kind of get some flavor on it, our lawyers told us if the legislation's not going to change, you're better off spending, and Val and Mr. Palmieri can attest, you're better off spending that $290,000 on lobbyists, because that's what decided the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
We're going to get back to work on our end. And again, I think after reading everything, and I think even amongst the committee, we have a meeting coming up, we'll talk about some things, is maybe the 3 ambulance thing, maybe we alter it to maybe do a 12-hour, or we take that 8-hour overlap and extend it to 7 days a week. So we want to dive into the numbers a little bit more. So, so when if we do go out to RFP for another time, I think we'll have a better understanding of some of the things that maybe we can address. Because maybe just the 3 ambulances, we can adjust some stuff, so.
Chris.
First of all, I want to thank you for your leadership on the committee. Being a career first responder yourself, I think you bring that unique perspective that is needed on that committee. So I'm really appreciative of your leadership there and want to thank you for that. Just to give a little context, the The bill that we're referencing is 10 years old at this point. It was passed in 2014, so it was a different governor, a different legislator. All of our state reps, Senator Sampson now is the only one that was actually in office, and he wasn't even in his current role. He was a state rep at that time. So the legislation has changed quite a bit. So I'm very optimistic to hear that they're all going to work in this next session to move that forward. I would be remiss, I just want to actually, and he's here tonight, I want to thank Representative Poulos because I know our town manager did ask our entire delegation to write a letter of support, and Representative Poulos did write a letter of support to the Department of Public Health to try to appeal Southington's case. So I want to thank you as well for your work to try to reverse that for us.
Thank you, Chris. Tony?
No, I just want to ask Alex to clarify, when you say lobbyists, lobbyists for whom?
For us.
For us, but also not lobbyists for the companies? Because what I see, the problem with this is if the state decides this for all municipalities, then eventually, obviously you're going to get lobbyists from these companies to the state, and you'll eventually get monopolies built, and eventually nothing is going to happen because monopolies protect themselves. There's no competition here, obviously, because we'll lose, as you've shown. So, that's what worries me about, it'll get worse and worse as we go on unless this legislation is changed. That's
right.
the point I was going to make, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the town manager was saying some lobbyists to help us with the legislative change.
I get it now,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Lobbyists for companies.
Yes. Chris?
Well, just another point. I'm wondering maybe through CCM, through the town manager's office, if we can use some of the resources that we have to find out if other municipalities are in a similar situation, maybe not necessarily with AMR, but just in a situation where they are opposed to this bill that was passed a decade ago. That may be helpful too to your committee.
Or CROG?
So CCM that was the organization that pushed the changes in 2014. That bill was supposed to block what happened to us. It was supposed to prevent this.
So unintended consequences right now.
It's not strong enough,
Yeah.
because the problem that CCM had in 2014 was this was happening. Towns weren't able to control their own emergency services. Even if we wanted to buy ambulances and have our own paramedics, we can't do that ourselves if we wanted to, without the state's blessing. So CCM pushed that legislation in 2014. They did send a letter of support with us to our application, and they're willing to help with, they said they're willing to propose language, whatever our delegation will support. They're willing to do all the work. Our delegation just needs to push it forward.
Okay, that's helpful.
So can we agree on? Yeah,
Yeah,
please
just
go.
quickly though, Alex, when we had the meeting with the attorneys, I had in my notes that Milford and North Haven were successful with DPH.
Yeah, in
With
the
their
decision,
pizza, right?
the hearing officer referenced that Milford and the other was different than Southington's.
There were too many differences?
Well, yeah, he said it was not
Apples to apples?
apples to apples.
Jim, please. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
Bill, you said in the last 10 months, they were 5 months on and 5 months off on the response times. Do we have any idea what we deteriorate to when we're off? I know that each situation is different. So I have two questions.
Is
One,
it 50 or is it 89?
well, I mean, are we talking, they respond in 8 minutes and 14 minutes. Does it go to a half hour or an hour?
No,
And-
it varies. It can go, it can go anywhere from 20 minutes, 12 minutes. It's all over the map. I could get that information for you to look at it.
It would be interesting, and again, I have a bigger concern. My bigger concern is that we're stretched for resources wherever we go. And so I'd like to know what happens to the priority 1 calls on average. And again, you can have 2 heart attacks in a minute, or you can have them 4 hours apart. So it's just a number. But I'd like to see the split between priority 1 and priority 2 that are in overload and they're not being responded to, and average response times. Because if we see that we have a higher percentage of priority 1s that are taking 45 minutes, let's say, that's a huge problem.
Right.
And again, I'm a firm believer that there are not enough paramedics and there are not enough ambulances in the state of Connecticut, no matter who we go to, and it's a bigger problem for the state than just allowing us to change our provider. I'd like to see a contract come where they guarantee that they're going to make the response times, and when they don't, they get penalized.
Yeah, and you make a lot of good points, and actually what you just described was one of the things we were trying to get clarified in the contract, because initially in 2023, AMR used to provide us with priority 1 percentage rate, priority 2 percentage rate, and then towards the end of 2023, it merged into a singular number, which the committee voiced to say, let's go back to the old way. And there was some discussion about, well, this is the same thing and everything else. So you do make some very, valid points. And the hearing officer did put in his decision that even looking at further with, AMR missing their response time, that needs to improve, but it also would need to improve no matter what ambulance service that you had. So he did cite that in there, that, we did put up that they are missing. So, again, that's part of the EMS committee to talk about, why are you not hitting the number? Is it this, is it that? And then trying to come up to work together to create solutions to the problems.
Yeah, as a counselor, to me, it's a huge public safety issue, right? If you have a relative in your home that's having a priority 1 emergency, and there's 2 ambulances in Hartford and nobody to come here, that's a problem.
And we've had it happen.
Yes, we have.
And it's, further exacerbated by the fact, we heard Bill say, a company like AMR could request 10 new ambulances, but the state won't allow, sometimes won't allow 10. They might say you get 1 or 2. And so I'd like, so if you can touch base with CCM and maybe get the proposals and get them over to the delegation, the entire delegation, that would be great. I'd like to add that also in, this, why is it that there's a limitation on the number of ambulances? I'm unsure.
Yeah, staffing is one thing, but vehicles is another.
But if they say they can staff them and they want to have
but they
them,
let
but they're
them
not
have
allowed to, that's yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Jack?
Mr. Chair, thank you. So, Mr. Palmieri, I got a question. Now, our fire department, they have EMTs on staff as well, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, do you have any statistics on what their calls are, or what they're filling in, or, obviously what AMR is dropping? Do you have any of that data that, our first responders are stepping up?
Well, I have some data that I can share with you. Again, a lot of this stuff we started in January. The way the process is for overload is when our EMS provider is in overload, they're supposed to call central dispatch and say, we're in overload. Then dispatch will notify the fire department. We'll be sending you on calls. We've been working together trying to get these things to size up. So if you look at, I said, if you look at just January through October, we've had 264 overloads. And out of that, it looks like, it doesn't look like the fire department was, from March till October, they responded to 97, because in April, what we did as a PD and FD thing is we created a CAD code that when they're in overload and the fire department responds specifically for that, we enter it in our CAD system. So I don't have the data from January, February, or March, but from April to October, there was 97, but AMR reported to be on overload 264. So those numbers need to start matching. And to AMR's credit, we've been discussing this and we're trying to work with it, because a lot of times, sometimes they will call and say, hey, look, our ambulances are 15 out, and our dispatchers, we're trying to simplify it, saying, are you in overload or you're not in overload? And like we said to dispatch, if they tell you they're going to be outside their response, that's an overload, send somebody. So we've been working together with AMR to straighten that up. So these are the stats that I have right now for you. So as far as AMR reported 260 overloads in 10 months, and I don't have November's numbers.
Okay.
But that's something we will be tracking, starting since January. We're going to be tracking that every month, and we'll be talking about it every month, so we have it. So moving forward, if I'm asked 2 years from now if I'm still part of the ambulance committee, I'll be able to tell you we've had X amount over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that would be great data for us to obviously, in that committee to have, because then we could analyze what resources were taken away, because if the fire department's out doing medical calls, they obviously, it's pulling resources from them. So I appreciate that. Now, is there any officers that are medics?
No, we don't. our officers are not medics, only because that would just be another cost of training all the people. It's kind of a tiered response system, like you call for the ambulance, you get a priority one, you have an officer going, so it works, because you're getting everybody there. And then the FD is kind of our support when everything else falls, because like you pointed out, if they're on a medical call and a fire comes in, so I don't really see the value to having all the officers trained as EMTs I don't think would be really fiscally responsible, because we have a pretty good system down pat.
No, I just was wondering, just because in the event they were doing any of that
Yeah.
data would be important as well.
But Bill, they are trained as first responders for
Yeah, so
for
they
an
can-
incident. They
yeah.
can do CPR.
They can do-
They have AEDs.
AEDs, CPR, they can give oxygen.
Right.
They have all.
They can
have
triage.
Right.
But remember, they can't transport.
Correct.
So
Right.
if the ambulance still takes 45 minutes, they're there for 45 minutes,
That's right.
helpless.
That's right.
That's not a good place to be.
No, and they're not a substitute. They're
Right.
only there. They're only there as an initial response if there's an overload and no one
Correct.
else is there.
And again, if you have priority ones, there's not much you can do besides give oxygen or CPR.
Right. Put the AED
It's a
on.
long wait.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, Tony?
Just on the second point you raised, Bill, about you're working without a contract, essentially, which you're very uncomfortable about. So what do you think we should do going forward? I mean, obviously, we can't take it to the state again and have a bid, process.
Well, what I'm looking at now, hopefully I can say this without getting myself in trouble. The council that represented us from the hearing, they have agreed, we're just waiting to hear from AMR's council, that myself and Bill Sheetinger, who is the regional director for AMR, are going to meet, to have just discussions, nothing that could be used in a hearing, that we'll sign our non-disclosures and everything, to try and get some stopgap set up. So we're still waiting to hear from AMR that we can go forward with this. But AMR was willing to do that. They just said, look, we want certain protections. So we're going to try and shore some things up and then kind of go from there. But I think if we understand what the hearing officer said were what he perceived as our shortcomings, if we address those shortcomings, I think we would be in a better position to go out for another RFP, and if it's AMR or whatever, that's fine. But I just think if we look at the things that he pointed out, like nothing in year 4 or 5, so we could make that an absolute requirement. Maybe look at the unit factor with our consultant a little closer to make it more in line with 0.5. So I think some of the lessons that we learned from there, would be helpful moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Bill, the last thing I wanted to, if you haven't done it already, can somebody maybe, as you're looking at all of the options in the playing fields, can you have somebody reach out to the New Britain, town of New Britain? They have a privatized organization, New Britain, they have their own ambulance service.
Yeah, New Britain EMS.
EMS,
Yep.
yeah. And they, the council has members that sit on that operations board and, have input into the ambulance service, but it's a completely, entirely privatized system, funded by them. It's not funded, my understanding, by the town or by the city. So it'd just be interesting to know if that's an option for us in the future. Yes, no. Are we, maybe not, because we're not as big as New Britain, maybe that's something that's not in play for us, but certainly would be interested to know if there's any options there.
Okay.
Or could we, do they want to expand? I mean, maybe they want to, seriously, maybe New Britain EMS wants to offer services.
Okay.
Part of the bid process.
So we'll look into that. I'll get back to what Councilor Morelli's questions were, and then we'll report back. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move on to agenda item number 5, councilperson communications. Anybody?
I'll lead it off.
Jim?
For a change, I have a few things. Last Saturday, the 7th, was the dedication for the library. It was heavily attended, and the comments were very positive. The old building will come down in January, and the project should be complete by June 1st. The building was constructed on time and on budget, and we had a huge thanks to everybody on that day. But again, I want to thank the building committee, the architect, and the construction manager, and library staff, the board, friends, and all the generous donors. A lot of people came together to make that a success, and it was a very good opening. Also, on last Friday, the 6th, I participated with Diana Sheard, Valentine the Clown, on Valentine's Toy Bus. She wore me out. Unbelievable what she does. And I have to say thanks to the parents and the students of DePaulo and Kennedy especially. It's amazing what they amassed for toys. It was just very heartwarming. And also the local businesses that participated, and there were quite a few. I have a really nice thank you video that mentions all those people, and I'm going to post it on my Facebook. I didn't get a chance to yet, but it's worth watching. It was a really fun day for the community. Also on Saturday the 7th, I caught a cold again for the 3rd year in a row, ringing the bell for Salvation Army at Price Chopper. And I have to say that it's overwhelming to see the people that pull up and see the kettle and reach for their wallet and their purse. They get out of their car, and before they even get to the door, they have money in their hand. It's just so heartwarming to see. I spent a couple hours there, and I know a bunch of others of ours did, and they'll mention that probably as well. And that bucket was stuffed with cash. So again, thank you to all the residents and the people that are generous this time of year. It's really heartwarming. And that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Anybody else? No? Chris?
A couple things. I guess just to follow up on that, Jim, I was Jim's partner on Saturday, ringing the bell. And not only were people just generous to the community in their donations, but one woman that I don't think either of us knew.
Oh, yes, I forgot
Stopped
that.
and bought a hot chocolate for Jim and myself because we look
Sarah.
so cool.
Yeah.
You know, so it really is just amazing to see how much our community comes together in times of need. So that was great. On Friday, I had the pleasure of attending the town green lighting ceremony with Paul and Tony. So that was great. Thanks to Dawn and her elves as well for organizing such a great event for the community. I want to, when was the date? November 13th, draw attention to something. The town manager had sent us all a press release, and this was in regards to compliance checks for local businesses that unfortunately every now and then they're spot checked to make sure they're not selling tobacco products, vaping products to kids under the age of 21. Unfortunately, at the last check, 6 businesses failed that compliance check. This was in the press release from the Southington Police Department, but those businesses were Sunoco Food Mart on 398 Main Street, Cigar Plus Tobacco Shop on 909 Meriden-Waterbury Turnpike, K&M Smoke Shop on 1672 Meriden-Waterbury Turnpike, Smoke Village on 861 Queen Street, Smoke Valley and Convenience on 1173 Queen Street, and Cigar and Vape Hookah from 400 North Main Street. And again, unfortunately, all those people, someone under the age of 21 and working with the police department, went in and without an ID, and they were sold products. The law is pretty clear. You need to be 21 to purchase this, and they should be carded as appropriate. So I'm trying to find a way to maybe deal with this locally. And I thought, Bill, I looked to you, I thought maybe strengthening our ordinance. I spoke to the town manager, spoke to the police chief, spoke to Representative Poulos, because this is really at the state level as well. And after talking to Chief Daley, I'm a little bit more optimistic, because effective October 1st, and this came right from the Attorney General for the state of Connecticut, there were amendments made to Connecticut General Statute 21A-420C. Now, that is unfortunately specific for cannabis, not necessarily tobacco or vape products, but I'm hoping that maybe that'll be a good path forward. I know Lou, Alex shared my conversation with him and reached out. At this point, maybe we can work with the police department because they are exploring some of these new options that just became effective, but maybe in the near future, we can work together to see if there's some type of ordinance we can strengthen locally. Because again, marijuana is one thing, but I'm also concerned about the tobacco and vape products that are being sold to underage people.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, I spoke with Chief Daley a couple of times as well on that. It was a little disheartening, as you pointed out, that they did 12 spot checks and 6 of them failed. And that's a concern. Some people could minimize vape and all the things that go along with it. It's part of growing up. But if you follow the news, a 16-year-old purchased a vape just recently over the weekend, and it was contaminated, and she is in a coma as a result. That's a 16-year-old child. So I'm not minimizing the spot checks, but they need to be increased. I know that there's some active investigations going on right now. Chief Daley and I spoke, even though he's not involved with legislation, about the possibility of sort of bootstrapping the Public Act that became a statute, and to trying to tie that into an ordinance that we could intensify the penalty or fine. As of right now, it's $1,000. Up to a municipality has a right to charge up to $1,000. It doesn't apply, as you correctly pointed out, to tobacco. It only applies to marijuana and the gifting, giving, trading, whatever the case may be. But there's certainly some positive hope that it's going to be more encompassing and cover tobacco as well.
So, and with that, I'm very happy to propose an ordinance locally, but again, in talking to the chief, seeing as this just became into effect October 1st, I trust the chief to look into this a little bit more, and then we can revisit it in a month or two if he needs support at the local level. But right now, I think he wants to explore some of their options at that level.
He and I agreed we'd speak in about 2 weeks on that very
Perfect.
topic. And since you're on that topic, and I realize I'm stealing your spotlight, but I think many of the people on the council know that there was a local business that was offering a trailer party that would involve individuals buying tickets, and they'd be admitted into a trailer where they could smoke marijuana. It was very clear in their advertising that they would not be giving or selling marijuana, but you could buy a ticket and go into this trailer and smoke your own pot. And this particular business is an alcohol establishment, and it was a major cause of concern for the police department. I think members of council reached out to me, and I had a couple of members of the community reach out as town attorney. That has been terminated and is not going forward, and my understanding is that there are no plans in the future for it to go forward. In fact, it may even be an act of legislation to stop that from happening in its entirety.
That was next on the agenda, so thank you. That's great. That's great. Just to continue along those lines, STEPS, the latest campaign, I can hold up a sample here, but this is, we're asking for partnerships with local package stores, especially around the holiday times. This is set up so it can hang right on a bottle of wine, for example. And we're asking them to share this, and it asks people, there's a QR code here, to familiarize themselves with the social host law. We found that many underage people that are drinking are getting their alcohol from right in their home. So this is in the hopes of better making people aware of the social host law from the state of Connecticut as well. So hopefully that'll be beneficial for our community. And the last thing, Mr. Chair, with your approval, Representative Poulos had reached out to me for an issue, really a local issue, and that he'd like to, speak to the council on. So if it's okay, I'd like to defer some of my time to Representative Poulos.
Can we allow the rest of the council members to speak first? Thank you. Anybody else have items to talk about?
Mr. Chair? Just to follow up on the underage sales of tobacco products, I know I spoke to the town manager about this as well. Is there anything, and obviously you can't go back in time, but going forward when we, maybe when P&Z has applicants coming before them, that, there's got to be a consequence. If you keep getting caught selling, then you got to lose the right to be able, because you're not being responsible. You're not being a responsible business owner. So I would love, obviously our legal counsel, maybe reach out to P&Z and see if there's anything, for newer establishments opening, if there's anything that we could put in play so that if they're violating it, then it kind of, gets taken away so they can't sell that type of product there anymore.
Sure, I'll look into that. It's an interesting approach I never even thought of, but yeah, I will look into that and report back to the council or you personally.
Yeah, no, I just think, again, we that won't fix it, instantly, but I think over time, that may be a path that us, as a local town, we could then, limit, them, from selling because they're not being responsible business owners.
So just to follow up, that's part of the conversation I had with the chief as well, which again goes back to the local control. But this amendment to this statute, I think, in speaking to the chief, is going to give them a little bit more teeth to enforce things locally. So,
Chris, you have the statute, do you have that statute reference?
Yep, 21A-420C. But again, Bill, that's specific to sale of cannabis.
Right, but it's
going to be expanded.
Exactly. Yep. So again, I'm hopeful. I don't want to share all the public safety measures that I discussed with the chief, but again, I'm confident that now there's a better path moving forward.
Sounds great. Jack, anything else?
That is it. Thank you.
Okay. I had a couple items that I wanted to bring forward. This December 30th, since we don't have a meeting before December 30th, there's a Hanukkah ceremony on the town green at 6 p.m. For those who are interested, there'll be a lighting of the menorah, and there'll be some refreshments, and I think it'll be a nice opportunity for folks who wish to come on out and congregate for the Hanukkah ceremony. That's 6 p.m. December 30th, town green. Today I had the pleasure with the town manager of attending a groundbreaking ceremony for Comprehensive Orthopedics, which is the location where Beacon Pharmacy is at North Main, Queen Street and Flanders. So there's going to be a state-of-the-art orthopedic facility there with MRI capabilities and an increase in the footprint of the service that they're offering here in Southington that they already offer today. So we welcome Comprehensive Orthopedics. It's quite an impressive operation that they have going there, and they expect it to take, I think, the better part of a year, they said, before they're open, right? I attended Liberty Bank turkey leg ceremony for the Rotary was there with Liberty Bank, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the donation from Liberty Bank to Rotary. I think it was, and I know the president's here, I think it was $75,000, which is going to end up coming back to the community through the Rotary organization, and it's just an amazing thing. So thank you to Liberty Bank for being a great community partner. That occurred a week or so ago. I had the pleasure of attending the Thanksgiving luncheon at the Karen Smith Academy with the staff, the Board of Ed staff, some civic organization steps, and the Karen Smith Academy students. And I wasn't able to stay the whole time. I know the town manager was there. Was anybody else at that? But that was a really nice opportunity to recognize the students and the staff and all those who contribute to the Karen Smith Academy and the services that they provide. And it was very well done and very well received by everybody who attended. The last item I had was I attended an interfaith Thanksgiving service 2 weeks ago over at St. Dominic's, which pulled together all of the faiths in our community, all the pastors, the rabbi. It was a really nice service. I know it's done annually around Thanksgiving time, and it's an opportunity to celebrate all the faiths in the community, including the Sikhs were there. And everybody had an opportunity to come up and say a little scripture or a prayer or sing a song as they traditionally do. And, in today's day and age of all of the strife going on around the world, it's nice to be able to see communities like Southington come together and, regardless of your faith, find a common value to come together on and just share in Thanksgiving time of the year. So kudos to all of the the parishes who were able to participate in the interfaith service this year. We gave a town council citation for that as well. Okay, with that, Representative Poulos.
Thanks for the time. It's good to be back in the council chambers. I'll just start by echoing Vice Chair Morelli's comments about Saturday. It was a great celebration at the library. I was really impressed with the crowd, the community members that came out, and I drove by there tonight on the way here, and that lot was full. And so it's great to just see this new community resource being used and appreciated. And congratulations to the council, the building committee, the residents, the library staff. I wish Councilman Del Santo was here tonight because I'm here. I also wanted to congratulate the council and speak to the success of the downtown Plantsville Safety Improvement Project. As you all know, I live about 2 blocks from downtown Plantsville. I drive through there all the time, picking up my kid at Kennedy, and it really came out great. There were some ups and downs with some of the traffic flow, but we got around it. And but I wanted to come tonight because I want to offer just some history to the council, some information that I carry with me from my time on the council that I'd like you to just absorb and consider. I'm not asking for votes or I'm not asking to put things on agendas. I'm just here to provide some context. Back in 2019, I was reelected to a second term on the council and appointed to the Public Works Committee. And at that time, the project was underway. Former Vice Chair Maselli from the Public Works Committee was convening the local businesses of the Plantsville area, asking them for input on design, sidewalk colors, benches, and so forth. And in that process, she shared with me, because she had just stepped off the council and she saw that I had been appointed to Public Works, she said to me, Chris, we're working with the Zomer family to try to acquire the corner parcel where a pocket park is going to be built. And she said, the strategy here, Chris, and I hope you'll carry the torch, is to try to acquire that piece of land for less than its assessed value, build a pocket park, so it's almost a little gateway corner there to the town of village of Plantsville. And then in recognition of all the Zomers have done for the village of Plantsville, and for them offering us, or the town being able to purchase it for less than the assessed value, to give the Zomer family recognition when that park is established, a recognition. And so she shared that with me, and so in good faith, we had one meeting with Mrs. Maselli, town manager Shoda, and myself, and Mrs. Zomer, where we talked about that arrangement. And we moved forward, and ultimately that parcel was purchased for about $26,000 less than the assessed value. Interestingly enough, in that whole process, and it was a long process, there were some bumps along the way, and there was some convincing, but I found out as a kid, growing up and going through Plantsville, there was this like abandoned, rickety grocery store that was originally, ultimately torn down and replaced with where the Clock Tower Square is. And she talked about her role with then Councilman Bill DiPaolo, and I believe it was Mark Lovely who was the developer in that project, to transform that space into something much nicer. She talked about her role, her family's role with installing the first set of the lampposts with the little flags on them that were installed in Plantsville. And then some of their involvement, their deep involvement in Halloween and Christmas in the village, and how her son Mark would always decorate that corner parcel that they owned with gravestones and so forth. And so I come tonight to share that history because I don't think any of you were on the Public Works Committee at that time. Paul might have been on there when the transaction went through, but not sure you were privy to the conversations with Mrs. Maselli. But I come just to share that information. It's for you to do what you want with. It's my hope that the town will make good on their word with the Zomer family. But again, you're the sitting council, and you're going to see this project through to fruition. But I do think that this is something that was, I'll say, promised to Mrs. Zomer, and that you know, it would be a really nice gesture once that pocket park is completed to recognize their family's long history as small business owners and as contributors to the village of Plantsville.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on to item 6, report of special committees. Public Works. Jim.
Mr. Chair, we had a meeting last Wednesday, December 4th. There were quite a few actions in that meeting. The police department notified us that there are 2 speed trailers going up on Mount Vernon Road near Whitman, near the Sportsman's Club. There have been a lot of complaints about speeding on Mount Vernon, so that was set up. Bulky waste, the transfer station, the tax office will now give out stickers, so the highway department is no longer doing that. I think for a short term they will, but we want to transfer the responsibility to the tax office. So go to the town hall for your transfer stickers. We also approved the hours for the transfer station for 2025, and that'll be on the town website. We were notified that the leaf pickup, all zones were done once, and they were in the second pass of Zone 1, and the completion is basically determined upon, or determined by the weather. So since we haven't had snow, they're going to keep on going. They advised us that our salt stock is full, so we don't have to worry about the roads, and that there's a plan in place to replenish as they use it. On December 6th, there was an inspection in downtown Plantsville, and that was basically the end of construction for the year. They will resume to finish in March. However, the skirts on the lights have been on order, and they're trying to find out where they are. They're obviously late, so we're trying to get those in as soon as possible. The trail from Lazy Lane to Aircraft Road, we had some lighting that needed to be installed under the 84 bridge, and that will be done by the end of December. So that's actually happening now. Newer Street Bridge, there was no comment. Marion Bridge. There was a discussion on the roads. So again, it's been a hot topic, paving of the roads. And the Public Works Department is looking into several different ways that they can extend or expand the coverage of roads. So there are 4 proposals being reviewed right now, and it's basically a combination of complete refurbishment, partial refurbishment, or Cape Seal, et cetera. So again, we have a fixed budget, we have a number of roads to take care of, and so we're mulling over 4 different scenarios where we can get coverage for roads. That will be complete in February, so there will be a published list next year that will tell you what roads are being done when. The Water Department reported that they have the financing in place from ARPA funds for the well on Dunham Street, well number 10. And they're working on the extension of a lateral main on West Queen Street for an industrial park that's going in there. We got updated that the Darling Street Apartments heat problem is completed, so they have the heat back on the apartments on Darling Street. And, there's been a problem with the heating at the Calendar House, and it was determined by some assistance from Jack, actually, that the system was under warranty, and it will be completed for less than $10,000. And I believe that we just got a quote in the last couple of days. So yeah, it came in around $8,000, and that'll be done promptly. I think that was the gist of the meeting.
Questions on Public Works? Okay, hearing none, Library Building Committee, you're on again.
All right, well, I gave you the update, but I think the big things for the town to know is that the abatement process has started as of today, and the building is slated to be down in January. So you'll see a big difference in the look of the corner. It's exciting. It won't be complete probably until the weather turns, like I said, around June, July. There will be a pretty large patio that goes in there, some landscaping, some parking, and some detail on the corner. So look forward for that. And I think that covers the library.
Any questions on the library? Okay, hearing none. Item C, self-insurance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, self-insurance, yeah, it's interested in a couple of things. First is the stop-loss insurance, which is essentially gives us catastrophic coverage in case the claims go over too much on various people. We passed a motion authorizing the stop-loss coverage be shopped out in the marketplace as opposed to just staying with Anthem. Even if we don't find anything cheaper, we may force Anthem to sharpen their pencils for the renewal. So it's worth doing. And unlike our ambulance friends, if we have an RFP and we decide to do something different, we'll be allowed to do so. So, second thing, this is a more interesting one. We took a vote on the projected total cost number for claims in order to provide needed input for our budget development process, both for the town and the Board of Ed. And we agreed upon a number of 32.9 million. Now that's quite higher than what we're at least seeing this year. And the reason is because the projections for next year's claims, actually that came in at 33.9 million, not 32.9, which is, again, a large increase. The increase is due mainly to inflation and the fact that our employee population is getting older. You know, people are retiring, et cetera, et cetera. So, we decided, like we did last year, to use reserves. And we have about at the beginning of the year, we had about $6.7 million in reserves to utilize for various reasons. We used 1.2 million of reserves last year. $1 million was voted on by the Self-Insurance Committee, and another $200,000 was added by the Board of Finance as recommendations. So that essentially brought us up to a number of roughly about 30 million. So what we said was, okay, we'll use $1 million. We didn't want to go higher than that for various reasons. And that cut our 33.9 million projected cost essentially down to 32.9 million, which is essentially an increase, a real increase of 9.5% over what we put in the budgets last year. And that number will be, given to the town, given to the Board of Ed. 74% of that goes to the Board of Ed, and the other 26% goes to Alex, the town manager. It's not what we'd like to see. It is a large increase, but we allayed, we sort of capped what it could be by using the reserves. Anyway, we'll continue to monitor the claims as we go forward. We still have 2 meetings before the budget is cast in stone. One in February, one in March. If we'll keep looking at them. If we need to change the projection, we will. That's it.
Hopefully you change them in the downward direction this time.
That's not up to me, Paul.
Okay, who has questions about self-insurance? Jack?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple quick comments. So what we voted on was the initial cost budget. I voted against that because, it was sounded to me that we were not in compliance with our reserve policy that the Self-Insurance Committee created prior to me being on there. And the chair, Labiniak, stated that, maybe we should, review that and change that. And I stated that's, a great conversation to have and relook at, what the trends are. But I also don't think it's the appropriate time to do it during the budget process because, again, it's like changing the rules of a game mid-play. We wait until this round is done, then I think we review it, afterwards so that nothing looks like it's being done or changed as far as a policy to meet what we're trying to accomplish, if that makes any sense. So I know that there's going to be more discussion at the next 2 meetings about this, but I just wanted to kind of just put that out there.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. Any other comments?
I would like to respond on that. It's what we're talking about here is judgment, okay? And we made those judgments last year, which we made the judgments to use actually 1.2 million of reserves, because we had 8 million in reserves at that time. And the reason we went and did that, and this was, voted on by not just the Self-Insurance Committee, but, the Town Council and the Board of Finance, which actually added. So pretty much everybody who's connected with this voted in favor to use 1.2 million last year, because the alternative, I remember last year we had to do a large increase, a large tax increase. We would have been adding 1.2 million to that increase. And we're doing the same thing this year. And the judgment is that whatever happens with the budget, and we know it's going to be not the best of years, okay, for a variety of reasons, whatever we can do to use existing pools of money to prevent our community being either, services cut or given large tax increases is what we should do. And that's why we made that decision.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Val.
Is there, so what is the reserve policy for self-insurance? Is it just an older policy that needs to be looked at, or?
Yeah, you've got a copy here if you want.
Just for my own. Thank
Okay,
you.
any other questions?
I believe it was adopted in 2021, prior to me being on that committee.
Just, question on the policy, Val. What we did talk about was actually looking at the policies and making sure that we were okay with it, when we get around to the August timeframe. The thing is, the policy suggests if you use reserves like we're doing, you can do it. But what you want to do is do it with a sense of looking out 3 years. And it mentions 3 years. You don't have to, but that's a good thing to do. And we started that already, because if you take too much out of the reserves 1 year and then take another big chunk, then you're going to get into trouble. So what you need to do is sort of, ratchet it down over, say, a 3-year, a 3-year plan. We don't have that plan articulated because we didn't need to, but we'll probably come up with something like that. Come the summer when we maybe make some changes to this.
So because I know self-insurance gets very complicated. So last year, it was 1 million that self-insurance committee voted for, and then 200,000 was added.
Added by the Board of Finance.
Board of Finance. And then this year, it was 1 million.
Meaning that we've...
You just voted?
Just voted, yeah.
Okay. So you're, in a sense, you're kind of establishing this 3-year.
Yeah, without it being a formal 3 years.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So but it sounds like the policy is going to be, it's going to have to be looked at, because the reserves are going to continue to
Yes.
dwindle.
Yeah, we think a decent reserve amount would be 4.5 million. And
Well, what,
4.5 million. And at the beginning of the year, we had 6.7 million in reserves.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Jack?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So since I've been on the Self-Insurance Committee, it obviously was just talked about using the reserves and slowly each year throttling it back. What has occurred every year has been take the full million, and then last year was 1.2. 1.2 is a 20% increase than what we agreed on. And, we have, and I think it's important to mention it, is we have a resident, that serves on that board that is, he used to be an underwriter, so he understands this more than anyone. He brings a ton of value, and he had concerns as well. So I tried to, I think it's a great committee, and we try looking at everything, in a bigger picture. But again, continuing to use it, we have the IBNR that takes a big chunk of that reserve. So the last thing I want to see happen, that our reserves on that in the self-insurance is funded by the town employees as well as the taxpayers. In the event that reserve runs out, it will come back 100% on taxpayers. So if we don't have enough money in there, we're not going to go back and supplement town staff. They're paying their portion weekly. So I think it's very important to understand that if that reserves gets too low, and we watch the increased trend and the numbers, yes, go up, I think it's important to understand that if we don't have money in the reserves, it comes back to the taxpayers 100%.
Well, I just I'll talk about
So
the
I'm
IBNR.
going to just say, this is going to be the last comment on this
Last
topic.
comment, okay. We did subtract the IBNR. The number I said of 6.7 million had the IBNR subtracted from it. So that is the number we're looking at right now. And, we still have a ways to go, even to get to what we agree should be our floor of about 4.5 million. So we're okay, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to the town manager's report and communications.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly tonight, before I do, I just want to acknowledge, Mr. Morrison talked about the employees and their ages, and it reminded me, we had 4 very long-time employees that are retiring this month, and I just want to publicly thank them. Mr. Jay Baker, he was our IT director for many, many years, spent a lot of time with the Board of Education as well. Sue Messenger has been our payroll clerk for the last 17 years. Mr. Jim Bowes, this is retired 2nd time with the town of Southington, 3rd time overall with the town of Southington. His retirement was effective Friday. He's really more like taking a step back and still going to be coming to the Board of Finance meetings, but he just needs to get a little bit of a lesser stress in his life. And Mr. David Schneider, I don't know if Mr. Palmieri is still here. He's not. I asked how many years, but I know Mr. David Schneider with the police department. Many, many, many years. So I want to thank all those folks. And then we have Mitch Gugliotti, who's taking over for Mr. Baker. Mitch will start on Monday. Right now, Mitch is the head of AI for Connecticut Department of Transportation. So we are stoked to have him aboard. He really is excited. He's been coming in off the clock this week just to kind of meet with people and help us out. So we're looking forward to him. And he was an alumni of the town. He was in the engineering department 6 or 7 years ago, left to go to the CTDOT, and now he's back. So, and thanks to Jim Grappone for kind of recruiting him for us. And then Bona Vojak is our new payroll and benefits coordinator. She spent a lot of time in Rocky Hill working on munis and benefits, and we sat down today and had some new paychecks training with her, and she has a 2-week overlap with Mrs. Messenger. So we're really excited about getting her on board and all the new implementations that the town council has supported over the last few months. So thank you to that. All right, on to real business is what you've had in your packet was a couple different documents. So Supreme Forest Products, I'm going to let Attorney Martascio kind of get into the weeds with this, but Supreme Forest Products leases part of the DePaulo Drive landfill off of DePaulo Drive. And they've got a bunch of stuff there that they use, and they've got a few buildings as well. They subleased that property to Eversource for $3,000 a month, more or less as a favor to Eversource. Eversource is their largest client, so for them it wasn't a financial issue. It was just we want to help them out, and for them $3,000 is nominal. They ended up in the process of selling that part of that business, and realized that they're not in compliance with the lease. Right now, they're in violation because the lease from 2014 states that the property is only to be used for storage and processing of soils, wood, mulch, other organic materials, and it expressly prohibits subleasing with the sole discretion of the town of Southington. So most leases, you're allowed to sublease, and with the discretion can't be withheld. This one says that you have the full discretion to do whatever you want. So they're looking to a way to remedy this, and I will let Mr. Martascio go into it if the chair would allow and I'll end my report and let him get into his report.
Sure.
Thank you.
Attorney Martascio.
Sure, I think you all have it in your packet, all the information already in your packet. In a nutshell, the lease is essentially going into its 12th year of a 20-year term. I say it started in June, so June of 13 is when it started. It's scheduled to finish up in June of 2023. The lease itself prohibits any assignment, as the town manager has already stated. The issue you have before you is to whether or not how the council chooses to act. And there are a variety of different things. You can go to RFP. The council is not required, nor does our charter require us to do any kind of competitive bidding or anything like that to open it up to other people. That only involves sales, not necessarily leasing. So what it boils down to is we have a subtenant that is not technically or legally permissible to be a subtenant on the property. Had the tenant come to the town and said, we're interested in subleasing, presumably somebody or the council or subcommittee would have vetted them and made a decision as to what, if any, parameters they're going to set before they permit a sublease. In this case, it was just bypassed entirely. I'm not certainly that, I don't believe it was done in an effort to circumvent the rules or do anything underhanded, but nevertheless, they did violate the terms of the lease itself. Now the question becomes, what does the town want to do about it? Again, the sky's the limit. You can invalidate the sublease. I think that's probably the most extreme of the three. You can certainly seek compensation, a portion of the compensation that the power company is paying to the tenant, or you can agree to retroactively or effective immediately authorize the assignment of the subleasing agreement.
And just for clarification for the council, the sublease expiration expires when?
That is a 5-year renewable, if I'm not mistaken. Give me a second here.
Next year? Right,
Yeah,
end of next year.
25.
Yeah, so it's the end of next year. So essentially what we're talking about is a sublease agreement, if the council wants this, for basically an additional year. 1 year and 1 month.
Yes.
Okay, Bill.
So, I just want to make sure I understand this. So there's you can't assign it, that's the issue, right? Which is, because there's a sale of the company, the buyer would need an assignment, right? So they can't get an assignment. So we could theoretically say, all right, we'll agree to assign this lease and then sublet and take 50% of the proceeds. We're gonna sell our assignment is what we're gonna do. So we can monetize giving an assignment.
100%.
Okay.
Just for clarification, the Eversource equipment that's being stored, did I understand from previous discussion, maybe to the town manager, are they storing materials for some of the work that they're doing in the community? You know, like they're upgrading the utility poles, they're cutting some of the pathways, and then they're replacing some of the lines and things like that. So I'm guessing they're using this as a staging for the work that's being done in Southington.
That's my understanding from Supreme Forest Products.
Okay, Chris.
So just to follow up on Bill's point, I don't think we should get 50% of the profit. I think we should get 100% of the profit. This is our land. We had no knowledge. I don't think anyone up here did. I certainly was shocked when the town manager told me about it, that someone that we are giving this land to for $1 a year, a lease to $1 a year, then subleased it to Eversource and is making, I don't care whether it's $5, whatever, they're making $3,000 a year profit. I'm sorry, a month. That's what I meant. $3,000 a month profit on something that we gave them for $1 a year. And again, without our knowledge. So I'm not necessarily opposed to Eversource using the property. It seems like it's a good use of the property, and it's a source of revenue for the town of Southington at this point. Because if they're going to continue to use it, I think the town should take 100% of the proceeds from the sublease. But that's just my opinion.
Go ahead, Bill.
Can I just ask a question on the, so there's a 2-year, so the sublease would be effective until December 31st of 2025. There's an option for a 2-year extension.
It
Is
actually
that
would
still?
be retroactive. They've been there, for what I understand, the majority of the time before. And this only came to light when the new company who came in.
Right.
They couldn't verify the due diligence, they couldn't verify an actual
Okay.
lease in place. So I
So
believe
is that
most
why
of
there's-
2024.
Is that why there's this one-time retroactive payment?
Yes.
Okay.
So 24 and 25 are the 2-year extensions.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's the 2-year,
that's what.
so it's not, I'm sorry, where is this? Okay, so we're in the extension period? Or no?
Well, no,
This is going to be the new sublease proposed, right?
no, it's the, yeah, So that, if you look in paragraph 2, term,
Term, yep.
it went in January 1, so roughly 11 months ago, and it would expire on December 31st, 2025. And there's a 2-year option behind that.
Behind it or looking beyond 25?
Looking beyond, right?
Oh, beyond, okay.
Okay,
So
that's
it's going to
what
be
I
then
wanted.
additional.
And,
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
and that's what I had the question on, the retroactive payment is for January 1, 2024 to August 31st, 2024. Okay.
Other questions? I would like to just also add that the organization that we're working with, we do have a relationship with, and this organization is providing services that are beneficial to the town. I would say that far exceed the value that we're talking about here. For example, there's hauling of leaves that go from our storage site on East Street that gets stored at this place, overflow, which is a benefit to the town that I don't think costs us anything. And that could be tens of thousands of dollars that could be charged to the town. There's a mutual benefit there because they benefit from taking the leaves, we benefit from them taking the leaves. They also, I think they provide a service in the grinding, in the transfer station for all the brush that comes to the community. So again, there's another free mutual service there where, this company is basically taking all of the brush that's in our transfer station, which we may otherwise have to get rid of and pay to have it hauled out. It's being taken by this company because they could benefit from it and we could benefit from it being taken away. So I want to put that in the back of the mind here when we talk about what it is that we want to capture when it comes to revenue on this. And, whatever the council's pleasure, of course. But I think, if anybody's thinking about, punitively, hey, well, we should have known this, we should be capturing 100% of this. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that there is a little bit of a partnership here with this organization as well. So, Jack.
Yes, thank you. So, a couple quick things. I emailed the town manager's office. The original lease, we don't have Exhibit A, Exhibit B. I don't know. Whenever I look at an agreement, I'd like to see everything that, is a part of the agreement, but that's, I guess, the first one. I was doing some aerial searches, and again, I don't know what materials are there, but it does look like there may have been even some, equipment from Eversource going back to 2019. It looks like some telephone poles.
Yep.
If you look at 2016, it looks like an operation. So, I don't want to, be the one to kind of hold up things and go backwards, but I would really like to know, how long it has gone on for. And I think all that money, that Eversource has given to the person we leased it to should come back to the taxpayers. Eversource is not friendly to us, we have these rates to pay, and, this is our land. And I get it that they're using this to help our infrastructure in our community, but I did not see on my Eversource bill, nor none of the residents that I've spoke to, that Southington gets an
But I don't,
adjustment.
just for clarification, I don't think the discussion here is whether we share with Eversource. The discussion is whether the revenue sharing is with the Supreme, is it Supreme? It's not with Eversource, so I agree with you, Jack. Eversource should be paying in full, so.
Well,
just-
and for the record, for I-2 property, what they do for, in my opinion, the level of work and what they do for the town, I-2 property is very valuable for Southington. So, again, you can't really put a dollar amount on what this space is for I-2 because Southington has no I-2. Very limited inventory. You can't just go and lease this.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's undervalued.
Agree. So, just as a reminder, everybody can kind of go back as well. If we recall what's happening at this site, because not all of us were on this site, we're on this council when these agreements were made many years ago. This site is actually doing recycling, and then the other part of the site is doing the recapture of scraps, food scraps. And what they're doing is they're selling that back to the grid. So they're selling the gas. They're not selling the gas. They're creating gas from the biodecomposition of the food scraps, capturing the gas, using the gas to power a generator. The generator is creating electricity, sending it back to the grid, and it's part of the agreement for the land that you referenced, Jack. As part of that agreement that the town entered with them, they are giving free electricity back to the town for 8 of our sites. So there's 8 sites in Southington that are benefiting from the operation of this.
I thought we had an agreement that we pay a certain dollar amount, and it's supposedly a reduced one, so I don't
It's like
think
a
there's any-
20% reduction or something like
But
that.
again, it's not free. You know, you
Right,
stated that we get, 8 buildings free electricity.
Yeah, there's a certain component, there's a
yeah.
certain amount that's free, right? Yep, agree. Yeah, good.
Maybe this is directed to the town attorney, but, so, I mean, I see Jack's point, right? I mean, nobody wants to help Eversource. I mean, financially, I get it. What would your remedy be for somebody who improperly subleased, though? I don't think it would be, you couldn't recapture all the money they were paid under an illegal sublease. It's just a breach of the lease, right? You could enforce the breach, but you're not gonna be able to go back in time and say, hey, I want 10 years of all your illegal payments. I don't think that's what it is, right?
No, you're correct.
Chris?
So along those lines, I think there's 2 separate issues. I agree completely with, I'm thankful for Supreme and what they've done through Quantum Biopower. Supreme itself, great.
Yeah.
Not the issue. We can still give the site to, and what's the new company? What's the name of the new company? That they're.
It's another name, it's a third.
Okay, so this new company, we can still give that land to the new company to do the same thing with the leaves and the mulch, fine. But then there's another piece of the property. If it's our property, why would we give that land to, just for this sake, I'll say Quantum Biopower, to then not use it for the purpose that we intend them to use it for, but then to sublease it out to Eversource and us not make the money? Whereas, why don't we just enter into 2 separate leases, one with Eversource, directly with the town, and take out the middleman, and one with Supreme or Quantum Biopower or whoever is gonna be taking over that land? Am I missing something?
You're not, but here's the short answer of it. This doesn't matter to Eversource. It doesn't matter to Supreme. They did it as a favor, and they did this $3,000 a month lease so they can close the sale. If you don't take it, Eversource will just move their stuff next week. There's just, doesn't really matter. So I don't want to diminish it, but that's what's going to happen.
So I guess back to my point then, that's fine, we can maintain the $3,000 a month, but why would we have someone else be the broker of that agreement when it's really on the town land? We can honor that agreement for $3,000 to the town.
Well, we already have a lease with Supreme for that site, which includes that. So in order for us to do what you're saying, we would have to change our lease with Supreme to exclude that piece, then create a new lease. And the issue is Supreme is being sold.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in us creating new contracts because essentially Supreme is being sold and the new company coming in, there's only an intention by Eversource to use this for the next year because then they're out of Southington. They're just using it to store their stuff while they're working in town. But I think if we say we don't want them to store their stuff on this property, they'll just take it out. I mean, I don't think it's a big issue. And likewise, if we say we want 100% of the revenues, I don't think anybody's going to argue. If we say we want 50% of the revenues, I don't think anybody's going to argue. So it's really what the pleasure of the council is. Now, notwithstanding Bill's comments about retroactive, I don't know, maybe going forward,
I'm not
you
looking
know,
for- yeah.
yeah, maybe going forward, it's whatever percentage the
Right, so
council determines.
that's what I was going to say, is
Yeah.
that it's really, there's nothing, we don't have any recourse retroactively.
No.
We have no nexus between Eversource and us. We have
Right.
no contractual agreement, no discussions. We found out almost by accident.
Right.
And Mr.
And the
Chairman-
original lease is until 2033, right?
Yeah, it's a 20-year.
So 20-year.
Oh, that's right. Gary, Mr. Brumbeck did an extension on that. So it goes out to
33?
33.
33.
2033.
33.
And Mr.
9
Chairman,
months, yes.
Supreme informally offered the $1,500, and I advised them that that's probably not going to be good enough. So that's why it's with you, and you can authorize me to enter into agreement with them up to a certain dollar amount, or you can authorize Attorney Martacho to put them in default. I believe those are the 2 reasonable options.
And just as a reminder, we're not taking action here. We'll take it down in old business once we're done with the discussion here. Any other questions for the town attorney? Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, not a question, just more of a statement. You know, I just looked it up. That parcel that we are leasing is about 29.2 acres of land that we're renting. So, you know, I fight for principles and values, and again, if the town manager feels that Eversource is gonna, you know, they're not using all of it, but based on the satellite, they're probably using a good third. So 10 acres of just picking up and going, it's not like, you know, I gotta move a camper or a boat. It's a big operation, so just keep that in the back of your mind. I just don't think that they're just gonna get up and go, and I also don't think that, you know, Supreme, if they are selling, that, you know, if we ask for something reasonable, I don't think that they're gonna try to hold up a sale if it's reasonable.
They've already indicated a willingness to share in the rent.
They don't care about the $3,000.
Yeah.
It's immaterial. And just one last point, that is a landfill though, so it's I-2, but it's a
Superfund site.
So it's not.
So it's not as
you can't do
valuable as you
anything with
say.
it.
Well, it's not Superfund, it's just a landfill, because
It was.
Superfund, no,
Yeah.
that's Old Turnpike Superfund.
Right.
And Lazy Lane. I don't
Actually,
believe.
the Superfund may be beyond that,
Yeah,
more towards the Tilcon property.
Maybe, I don't recall that one being one of them, but I could be wrong.
So the EPA has it listed as human exposure controlled, groundwater mitigation controls. There's a bunch of test wells on it as well.
Because it was a landfill.
Correct.
So they actively were dumping at it.
And I am having conversations with the Bristol mayor as well. They have a landfill that almost abuts us. And we're starting to look for grants and opportunities, what we're going to do about that groundwater, because we don't know no one really knows what's happening with that groundwater.
Okay. Other comments or questions for the town attorney?
Just a quick question for the town attorney. Do you know when the closing is for the business?
I don't, maybe perhaps Alex does. I think they're still in the due diligence stages.
Okay.
Alex thinks they may have actually closed yesterday.
That's not due diligence.
Due diligence.
So it's late stage.
So there's obviously
Could have been this
something being
week,
withheld
so it.
in the sale.
So we're between somewhere, probably between 1,500 and 3,000 at the, whatever the council wants when we get down later on. Okay. Any other questions on that? Because otherwise, we will move on. Is there anything else on the town attorney's report? Since we kind of went from the
No,
town managers to town attorney's report?
Yeah, the two topics I had have already been addressed, that being the marijuana and sick tobacco, and of course, this lease issue.
Sounds good. All right. Then why don't we move on to public communications? For anybody who wants to speak, they can come on up to the podium. Just as a reminder, we have a 5-minute time limit for anybody who wants to speak. 1 trip to the podium per night. And I wanted to just put a couple additional things as we get ready to have public comments. Anybody who comes to the podium should address the council as a whole, not any individuals. Anybody who comes should use the utmost courtesy to the town's employees and elected officials. No rude or derogatory remarks, reflections on anybody's integrity. No abusive comments as to motives or any personalities. And I'm reading that from our town council policy that we adopted as a town. Okay? The floor is yours. Please state your name and address for the record.
Regina Coviello, 12 Beecher Street. I did send an email to all of you, and I'm hoping you received it and got a chance to read it. I would like that entered into the minutes tonight, if possible. 5 minutes is not long enough to go through the email, so I just wanted to tell you basics. Now, when you're talking about people, I'm mentioning town people. So can I not mention that, or names, or?
You can use the position that they hold. I
The
would say
position.
don't direct your comments at people.
Okay, no names, just a position. Okay, all right. So what I had sent you, it was a complaint against the Planning and Zoning Commission Chair. I have either attended or watched numerous meetings and have often just questioned the chair's behavior. I attended the 12/3/24 meeting, and I left there in awe of it. His actions were very unbecoming of a chair. And he makes Southington look bad. He was not only uninformed, he was out of line at times, and he was both downright nasty and rude to some of the applicants, public, and members of both the political parties' commissioners. It was very uncomfortable for me to watch. I can't even imagine how those involved felt of, the back and forth. I mean, I look at it this way. Imagine a Southington resident needing or wanting something done to their property. They hire a company, and that company comes before planning and zoning and are treated with disrespect. That may make that company not want to do work in Southington, okay, which is not a good look for Southington. So I do ask you, the town council and residents and stuff, to read my detailed complaint, view the meeting, talk to those who attended the meeting, and maybe look into any, previous complaints. It's up to you and the town to take the appropriate actions. I and many others, and this is from both political parties, have talked to other people. They don't want to come forth. I mean, bottom line, they're scared to come forth, okay? And they feel that, some sort of action should be taken and possibly that he steps down. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Anybody else like to speak tonight? Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public communications and move on to old business. Item 10, action on required town consent for DePaulo Drive sublease. What's everybody's pleasure?
Full price.
Do you have a motion, Jack?
I'll make a motion that, we do it for the 3,000 a month,
Going forward?
going forward.
So from now till 2025?
second that.
3,000 a month.
What about starting in 2024?
Sorry?
It started January 1st, 2024.
So a back
25?
payment?
It's, that's what the sublease is put in there for the lump payment.
But
That's
that's
the ret-
retroactive.
It is.
That's still on the table. That could be still on the table for us, yeah. So I would say amend the
Oh, because
motion to
because it hasn't been
hasn't
technically
been-
extended,
Extended yet,
technically.
yeah,
Okay, so January 1st, 2024,
to December 31st,
December 31st, 2025.
2025.
And that's $3,000 a month?
Well, it would be the one-time payment of 24,000.
Yeah.
And then the 3,000 a month, correct?
Is that the term of the lease? One-time payment, 24,000?
No, I think that was the back.
But that hasn't been paid yet, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
do
so
we
it says the sublease shall send one-time payment of 24,000 as retroactive rent covering January 1st to August. That's 8 months.
So they've already Eversource has already paid that retroactive.
Oh, they have
upon
paid that.
signing this, according to the terms of this lease.
Okay. So that's not, we wouldn't be, that wouldn't be available to us? If-
Yeah.
If we
you do
want.
whatever-
That's what I'm asking. Would that be available to us?
I don't know that, I don't want to certainly, on the record, disagree with the town manager, but I don't know that we have the right to retroactively charge a subtenant.
Well,
Noth-
yeah, on this agreement, it states the subleasee shall send a one-time payment of 24,000 as retro rent covering January 1st, 2024 to August 31st. And then obviously going forward, in my understanding would be 3,000 a month.
So we're.
So a
we're
one-time
negotiating with
payment of
Supreme.
24.
Yeah, we're going directly to Supreme. You can demand anything you want from Supreme.
So perhaps you split into two different motions, one being seeking a credit or payment for the retroactive payment of the 24,000, and then the second motion being going forward, if I understand you right, 3,000 a month going forward, effective, whatever, January 1 or December 1 of this year.
So what happens from September, October, November, December this year then? Do you know when this document was drafted? Because it may have been drafted back in August per se, and that's why they put that. So my motion would be a retroactive payment for all of 2024 as a lump sum of $36,000. And then going forward, $3,000 a month.
Okay. I'm not telling what your motion should be. I'm just suggesting that you can't generally collect retroactive payments, even whether it was lump sum or not, under a contractual obligation.
Right,
But it
doesn't
doesn't mean
mean-
it's not worth trying. I'm not suggesting that.
So where'd that come from as far as, you know, a retroactive payment? Who drafted this agreement?
Well, just remember,
Between Eversource and Supreme.
so they entered into this in August already. And if you, so what's happened is they've already paid the 24,000 and they've paid September, October, November, 3,000 a month. And then they decided, then they went, oh, we're gonna sell the company, and they realized that this lease is kind of in the way. So, I mean, we're assuming that they're caught up on payments, right?
Yeah.
Between now. So I guess the question would be, if the town attorney's saying we shouldn't go back and capture retroactive payments that were made from Eversource to Supreme, then we might want to just look forward.
Right, if the payment was made, that's where I was unclear. That
So
this has
do you want to
already taken
stipulate
place.
do you want to stipulate it and say that if, you know, maybe your motion could be, if it wasn't paid, then we want to capture anything that wasn't paid, right?
Yeah, well, whatever they captured, I think should come to the town. Now, if, yeah.
Because it was a contractual.
So I think you
Right.
suggested already, what if we make this in two separate motions? One, the retro payment, and one moving forward.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Are you okay with, so if you want to make a
The
motion?
the only caveat with that, Chris, is the town attorney is saying that, and I think I hear Val saying the same thing, it's probably not appropriate for us to try to capture the retro if they've already made a payment.
I agree.
So we could say that we want to, if it's not paid, or if possible, we want to capture all that money, but if,
But again, their agreement, we could have anything in our agreement.
yes.
We could say that, you know, we want a year paid in arrears and
Correct.
$3,000 a month going forward. There's, just like what they put in their contract here.
Correct.
So it wasn't like Supreme didn't get that money, they did. We know they got the money from January 1st to August
Exactly.
31st. So I'm still a big believer. I get it, we can't force them to do anything, but I would love to be the same thing, a lump sum payment for 2024, and then going forward, $3,000 a month. That's what I would love to see,
I
personally.
would suggest we do it, again, in two separate motions. Same exact terminology, just two separate motions. And you're 100% right. Eversource is irrelevant to us. We don't care who
Right.
the third-party tenant is. It's an issue between the town and Supreme.
Right, because
That's
we're
what
collecting this
boils
money
down.
from Supreme.
So what we could do, and
Yeah.
certainly our esteemed town manager would be the one to do it, would be to essentially use the leverage, for lack of a better term, of a default. You're in default to the terms of the lease. We're going to overlook it if you pay us back the 24
2024.
plus 3 months. And then going forward, we want the payment from Eversource coming directly to the town. That's why I suggest to be two different motions as opposed to one.
And I'm sure that they have funds put away for the true-up period, which again, there's lapse in outstanding things. So if the closing did happen, there's money usually put away in reserves for this.
Undoubtedly, because they became aware of the fact that there's this lease. So they, undoubtedly, it is in the true-up funds,
So,
or at
so,
least escrowed.
Want to make a motion?
yeah, so
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, you know, to obviously, you know, go back for 2024 for Supreme to pay the retroactive rent for 2024 of $3,000 a month.
Okay, so we have a motion on that, and we'll do the second one after.
Or put them in default.
Or put them in default.
Okay, and we have a motion?
Second.
Tony will second it. Any other discussion on that? No? Thank you, Mr. Town Attorney. Anybody else want to talk about that? How does everybody feel? Do you want to?
We're gonna need that money for our budget cycle, so.
Okay.
I guess I have a question.
Yeah,
Okay. And if they don't pay it, then what?
then they're in default.
And then what?
It's an idle threat. As big as frank as I can.
Because didn't we just discuss that we have shared services, and do we feel this will impact that? Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about, okay, 24,000 plus 3,000 a month for a year versus how much money are we saving for the services? Doesn't that need to be a comparison that we're taking into account?
I agree. And not only that, but the amount of tax that that business pays this town, I think it's frivolous right now to go after them for 30 grand. They took a piece of property that was basically a dump, and they turned it into 2 profitable businesses that pay tax in town. They made an arrangement. You don't pay any taxes? Well, Quantum does, but Supreme does.
I was going to say, there's no taxes. being-
I
So-
stand corrected.
so-
I was under the impression they paid a lot
Yeah,
of taxes.
this is again 30 acres of I-2 property, so I still a strong believer that, it's fair moving forward. So whoever's buying them, I don't think they're running backwards because, the property that Supreme is at is 39.83 plus this 20 acres. They'd be losing a third of their operating space. I don't think this will reset the tone of moving forward. And again, we're not asking them to give us money they didn't get.
Okay, other comments, questions? Jen, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Clerk, why don't we call the roll?
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes,
Dietzick,
No to the retroactive.
Morelli,
No.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes 5-3. Right, is that
Oh.
right? 5-2.
5-2.
I'll make a
6-2.
I'll make a
6-2,
motion.
sorry. 6-2, two people. So now we're looking for a second motion for going forward?
I'll make a motion moving forward that Eversource pay the $3,000 directly to the town through the sublease agreement.
Second.
Going forward to the end of the
Yeah,
sublease,
effective December 10th,
2025.
2024.
I'm
Starting
sorry,
tomorrow.
until
Yeah.
December 2025,
Correct.
through December 20. Okay. We have a motion and a second. How about discussion on the forward-looking?
I just ask for
Please.
clarification, any extensions.
And any extensions, yes. Sorry.
Okay. And you second on, and the extension?
Yep.
On any extension, okay.
Can I just get a clarification from the body?
Sure.
If they don't agree to the retroactive, are we not agreeing to the going forward? Because they're the same thing. If they don't agree to one, am I agreeing to the forward? And it's a public record, so they'll know.
I think that we're doing them separately because they're independent discussions, so I don't know.
But what's our recourse if they say no to the retroactive?
I don't know that there is any.
I don't think there's any recourse on us, but whoever acquired them, again, I'm sure is going to want that to be whole with the town. They don't want to start anything with potentially in default, like the motion stated.
But we can't entertain a new lease for going
with it-
prospectively if we're in default. So if we're in default, I can't enter a new lease with someone who's in default.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So if you put both of them in front of them at the same time, and they can pick and choose, they choose not to pay the retroactive. Okay, we've left with the fact that we can't make a deal on the second piece. Well, I would just say, okay, we don't do the retroactive, we do the second. I mean, it's a negotiation, right? I mean, as well as a lease signing, so.
Chair, if I may be heard.
Yes.
One other option that is available to the council is to provide the town manager with authority to negotiate. The motion would have to be withdrawn, both of them, but enter a new motion allowing him to negotiate on both the issue of retroactivity as well as going forward. Give him parameters in which to negotiate and work that way. It overcomes the issue as it relates to the default versus the threatened default.
So we can authorize the town manager to try to capture the previous revenue, as much of the previous revenue as he can.
As
and if he-
well as-
As well as the going forward.
He's such a great negotiator that I'm sure he'll get more.
But he's got to get the going forward minimum, right?
Well, it's all public, so I'm getting it all.
Right.
Because they'll know that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy to change the motion to that, but do we need to withdraw the previous?
We have to
motion?
withdraw the first one. So why don't we take a motion on that, because we're going to need a motion in a second. We're going to have to vote on withdrawing the first motion.
You want to withdraw your?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I withdraw my motion.
Okay. You're making a motion to
retroact,
withdraw,
yeah.
because we've already voted on that and approved it.
Yep.
So you're making a motion to withdraw that original approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and we have a second. Anyone want to discuss that? Because a yes vote to this will be to
Withdraw.
remove that last vote that we took. A yes vote. Okay, so why don't you call the roll, Madam Clerk, on the last one?
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes to withdrawal.
Morelli,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes. Okay, so now we have a clean slate here.
Now, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. We never voted on the second motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to allow the town manager to enter into negotiations for the retroactive and future lease payments on this piece of property.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, that was interesting. Motion passes unanimously. But I appreciate the collaboration, and I appreciate that everybody's talking about this. That was a little weird. I think it's a very unusual circumstance for us to be in this, we find out that somebody did something to a lease that we had without our knowing. So I appreciate everybody being open-minded about
It's
it.
difficult, so we put it on Alex's shoulders.
For the record, I just received the text from Eversource, all our rates are going up.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking for item A under new business, tax refunds.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 8-0. All right, so before we go into executive session, I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. We're not having another meeting in December, so I hope everybody has a happy holiday season, and we'll see everybody back in January. And now I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session barring the public and the press, but including the town manager and the town attorney.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any